Welcome to the Strength Bias Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Dunn. The Strength Bias Podcast will be dedicated to discussing all things related to strength training, whether it be for athletes looking to excel in their given sport, coaches looking to improve their knowledge, or people just looking to get stronger and enrich their lives. The guests I have on will be people that I know and respect from sports such as CrossFit, strongman, and powerlifting. This being the first episode, let's introduce what strength bias is, who I am, why you need to listen to me. Strength bias is a training idea that I had a few years ago in response to another CrossFit coach that told me that CrossFit was an aerobic sport. It's not. CrossFit is a sport of what we call GPP. GPP means General Physical Preparedness, and it is one of the core foundations of what CrossFit is. That you want to improve your optimal physical competency across 10 physical skills. These skills were defined by coaches Jim Colley and Bruce Evans of a company called Dynamax, who you'll have heard of because they manufacture the wall balls. The 10 physical skills are cardiovascular and respiratory endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. Aerobic capacity will only improve number one of those 10 general physical skills, your endurance. So if CrossFit is founded on the idea of GPP, how on earth could biasing towards aerobic workouts, therefore only improving your endurance, possibly make you better at something that involves 10 modalities? This is impossible. Okay, Kevin. Well, what about strength bias then? You're asking us to bias towards strength. Surely that means that only my strength will increase. This would be incorrect. When you bias towards strength, you are going to have a huge positive impact upon the other general physical skills. Let's take an example. Physical skill, power. Power is basically the ability of your muscular units, or a combination of those units, to apply maximum force in minimum time. So maximum force is strength. So it's strength in the domain of speed. You cannot possibly express maximum force in minimum time if you are not possessive of maximum force. Therefore, an increase in strength will see a resultant increase in power. Let's take something like agility. Agility could be described as your ability to minimize transition time between one movement pattern and another. I like to think of it as your ability to suddenly decelerate and change direction. Decelerating and changing direction involves you creating a force against the planet. This is called ground reaction force. You cannot create force without being strong. Also, CrossFit like to determine work being done, and they have a very handy equation for us about how they calculate your work. And it's calculated like this. Power, which is how they're calculating work, is force times distance divided by time. So if we wanted to improve our work done, we'd have to either increase force, decrease time, or increase distance. So let's take movement like power clean. So if we wanted to create more power in the power clean, we would have to change the distance, change the time it's taking to do the movement, or increase force. Increasing the force will have the biggest effect on all of those because bigger force equals a bigger weight lifted. Doing it for longer will not increase power, because what you've done then, if you change into a different modality, and you've probably increased stamina or endurance, depending on the weight and the time frame. Another thing we could take as an example could be balance, your ability to control your body's placement over its base of support. And strength is going to increase that because we take something like a single leg balance. Then if your legs have become stronger, then we've increased or sort of enhanced your ability to control the motor units in your legs. Therefore, your balance and control of those motor units is going to have improved. So strength will improve balance. In all these physical skills, we can see and make an argument for strength improving them. But we cannot make the same argument for aerobic capacity improving the 10 physical skills. If you want to talk about aerobic capacity in CrossFit, then you're talking about specialization, not generalization. And as CrossFit have as a tagline, specializations for insects. So GPP will increase as strength goes up. This is down to several reasons. Most key in those is the fact that your ground reaction forces I've already mentioned in terms of agility will improve. This is going to be very, very useful in anything that you are going to be doing with your feet in contact with the planet. And ground reaction force is so important in sport that it is tested when they select professional athletes in sports such as American football. It's tested at a thing called the Combine, which is where they have a battery of tests that they put prospective athletes through. And one of those tests is called the standing vertical jump. Standing vertical jump is a very, very good indicator for selectors of your ability to be athletic because it is genetically limited. And what they're looking for when they're selecting athletes is genetic freaks. So, if the standing vertical jump is limited genetically, how come I've got people in my gym that were doing 28-inch box jumps, now they're doing 36-inch box jump? Well, that's because the box jump is not the same as a standing vertical jump. Standing vertical jump is tested on a device called a Vertec, which has a series of horizontal metal prongs sticking out on it. What you do is you stand up and you reach out, you stretch up with your hand to your maximum extension, you touch one of those metal slats, and then you jump up and you touch another one. And the distance between the two is measured. And what they're looking for is genetic freak. Okay? So if it was a trainable aspect of fitness, then they wouldn't be able to select a genetic freak. Standing vertical jump, however, can be marginally improved by improving your ability to create force against the planet. Your ability to overcome gravity and propel yourself in the air is going to get better the stronger you become. The more force you can create off the ground with your legs, the better you can propel yourself in the air. Therefore, heavy squats and deadlifts are going to have an impact positively on your standing vertical jump. As this increases, your ground reaction force is better and you have become a better athlete. Being a better athlete is what we want in all sports. So biasing towards strength is going to help. The next thing is that strength takes a very, very long time to develop. Now, those people that are very new to this and at the novice level, I'm not talking about you. If you go into the gym today, having never trained before in your life, and you add 100 pounds to your back squat in the next 3 months, this is not an indicator that strength does not take long to develop. It's an indicator that you're an untrained person and that you are currently picking all of the low-hanging fruit from the tree. Once you have maxed out your ability to keep improving, become a victim of the law of diminishing returns or general adaptation syndrome, then you will realize that strength takes much, much longer to develop than something like your VO2 max. So aerobic capacity is something that can be impacted in a much, much shorter time frame than strength. So biasing your training towards strength, if you were training for something for, like example, the CrossFit Open, you were to bias towards strength for the majority of the year and then start to add in conditioning pieces to improve your aerobic capacity closer to the time, this would be a better use of your time than spending the year trying to get good at aerobics and then doing a strength cycle starting in December. This will not work and is stupid. Also, if you look at the gym in general, most of the people coming in to see you are, as again I mentioned, untrained people. They will, however, at some point in their lives have done some aerobic work. it is not unusual for people that want to get fit to have gone out jogging. Maybe they've been on a bike ride or a swim. Very unlikely that they have been out and gotten under a heavy barbell to try and get fitter. So, it's going to be better to expose those people to strength movements than aerobic movements, given that they will probably not have had any exposure to strength. Strength is also what is going to help people to work out more intensely. CrossFit loves to talk about intensity. One of their core sort of aspects as well is this thing called threshold training, which is where we want to take you to the threshold where your technique is beginning to fail and work out there. Not where it's at complete failure, but just where things are going a bit squirrely. And as we know, under fatigue, technique is the first thing that goes out the window. But being strong can help you to maintain that technique and maintain your positions for much longer. In weak people, we see things and positions falling apart much, much faster. So the idea of strength bias basically is that you want to get into getting stronger because it's going to help you to improve your 10 general physical skills, which is a foundational sort of belief of CrossFit. It'll help you to become a better athlete because your ground reaction force is going to increase. Strength takes longer to develop, and it's going to be more beneficial to expose untrained people to strength over aerobic work. The next thing is, why would I call it strength bias? Why not just call it strength training? And that's because there are coaches out there who coach strength who will tell you, you have to be stronger to get good at this CrossFit thing. No arguments there. But then they will tell you, therefore you have to completely stop doing CrossFit, get strong first, and then if you want to, go back later and do it. This idea will never ever work. It won't work on CrossFitters, it wouldn't work on rugby players, it wouldn't work on judo players, nobody. Because the reason that they are playing those sports is because they like and enjoy them. For the casual user, it's not going to fly to say, okay, cool, you want to get a little bit better at this thing. Maybe you want to do some workouts as RX'd, all right, which is our CrossFit speak for as they're prescribed. So let's say the workout is, 21 and 15, 9 of deadlifts at 225 pounds and handstand push-ups. You want to get to the point that you can do the 45 reps of deadlifts with 225. So you have to get stronger. So it's not reasonable, though, to say to these people that they have to stop doing the sport they want to in order to get better at it. It's better to say, hey, it would be much more optimal if you stopped doing this and then went back to it later, but I understand that you're not going to do that because it's what you love and enjoy. So what we'll do instead is we will bias your training towards strength. There are a lot of boxes out there that are already biasing their workouts towards a strength program. But their strength program isn't a strength program, it's an Olympic weightlifting program. Olympic weightlifting is not strength. Olympic weightlifting is another sports specialty. But the front squat, the high bar back squat, the clean, the snatch, and the jerk are not strength movements. Most of these movements are power. I mean, a front squat is done at a sub-maximal load when compared to your back squat. So if you cannot front squat as much as you could back squat, why on earth would you base a strength program or cycle on the front squat when we know that the back squat is a better option to make you stronger, right? And it's the same thing. I mean, like, for example, a clean. Yes, there's an element of strength, but it's always going to be sub-maximal to what you can deadlift and you can squat. So therefore, it's not strength. I would say that clean and snatch are actually power movements because they're strength displayed in the domain of speed. So what we want to do is we want to convince boxes to bias training towards getting stronger. That strength will help them with the rest of CrossFit without having to actually stop doing CrossFit. That's strength bias in a nutshell. Who I am? Well, I'm a completely mediocre athlete. I'm not really good at anything, right? I'm stronger than the average human being for sure. I'm stronger than most CrossFitters. I'm weaker than a strength athlete. But I'm just doing strength to feel more healthy and feel good about life. I am, however, very, very keen and particular about the way strength is coached. Because if you're moving maximal loads, You have to know what you're doing. It is not enough to take some smelling salts, right? Crank your belt on as tight as it can possibly do, put on some Metallica, and then go crazy. You have to know what you're doing, because these loads are so heavy, they can severely injure you. Not only do you have to know what you're doing, your coach has to know what's up as well. So one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing is I travel around the world and I teach seminars in this stuff. And I just did my 230th seminar just a few days ago. I've been in 18 countries and 13 of the US states doing these seminars. And I've trained thousands of people now. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm really passionate about strength and people getting stronger. But I'm also passionate about people being able to do it for the long term. I love the idea of getting stronger. I love making friends and the camaraderie and everything that comes with it. I don't want that to stop. So why would I put it at risk by having bad technique, poor positional awareness, and just bad coaching? I need to improve this in myself and other people. So I started originally on a sort of journey of coaching self-discovery, where I thought, well, CrossFit is made up of different modalities. We've got gymnastics, we've got powerlifting, we've got some Olympic weightlifting, we've got rowing in there, we've got all sorts of different stuff. There's some strongman. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and seek out specialists in these different areas. I'm going to take what they know, I'm going to mix it with what I know about CrossFit, and I'm going to be able to connect people to this information. The thing about CrossFit is that we can be very, very cliquey. That's why people say it's a cult, but it's not. It's just another group of people having fun and making friends together. But the thing about it is that it's more likely that they're going to take information from another CrossFitter. So that's why you see top games athletes going out and doing seminars. And I'll be honest, their seminars are rubbish. I've been on seminars that these people have done, right? And the thing is, if you've never had to go through an athletic progression yourself, how can you sympathize, empathize, or even teach a progression to anyone else? I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched this video where Carl Paoli teaches Jason Khalipa how to do a backflip in like 10 minutes. You know, you can't teach a normal human being how to do a backflip in 10 minutes because they don't have that level of athletic prowess. So it can be very difficult for athletes to teach Joe Schmo because they just don't understand it. Also, being an athlete, it can kind of be selfish. If I know something that makes me more efficient or a better way of training, I'm going to keep it to me because that gives me a competitive edge over you. But I don't have that issue. I'm not being competitive with anybody because I'm completely mediocre. But what I can do is I can share that information with as many people as I can. So I found out strength secrets from the greatest powerlifter of all time, Ed Cohen. Had amazing advice from Mark Bell at Super Training Gym. Learned loads of cool strongman stuff with the Arnold Strong Woman champion, Leifa Ingalls. Again, more strongman stuff with Derek Poundstone, who has the title of World's Strongest Cop. But he was also 4-time America's Strongest Man and came second place in the World's Strongest Man. Also been to see people that were specialists in weightlifting, like Diane Fu and Bob Tucano. I've been in rowing with Erin Carfano, who has several gold medals from the Olympics in rowing. So it's important to be able to get that information from me and then pass it on to other people. Recently, a friend of mine in the UK who runs a business called Strength Education, Chet, told me that I was a conduit. And I like that description, that, you know, I'm a sort of a conduit or a connector or maybe a catalyst, which is between the knowledge and the population. And that's all I want to do. I want to accumulate information, package it together in a way that people can understand it, a way that people can relate to it, and then give it to them. That's that. So that's my reasons for doing what I'm doing. Apart from that, I mean, I've done seminars and I'm quite into etymology, you know, the meanings of words. And it really struck me. I mean, there's people that I know in the UK. I've never been on their seminars personally, but I've heard from many, many people. So if there's no fire, there's no smoke. Then that, you know, the seminars are just kind of like, you know, you show up, the person taking the seminars walking around with their baseball cap on back to front, giving people fist bumps. You do some lifts, they give you some more fist bumps. They do a clean and jerk ladder, you take a few selfies. They do a snatch ladder, they done. All right? Box pays, you know, £2,000 or what is that, maybe $3,000 US to the athlete for the day. To me, this is just crazy. And etymology of the word seminar comes from the words inseminate. You've got to do this. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to say, isn't it? Go run these things and start inseminating people, but you've got to pass on knowledge, right? You've got to inseminate them with information and knowledge. And if you're not doing that, you're part of the problem and not part of the solution, right? There is too many people jumping on this bandwagon, because the thing is that these strength sports, I grew up in a powerlifting house. My dad was a powerlifter. He was a champion Scottish powerlifter, Celtic Nations champion. And, he retired sort of undefeated at his weight class, I believe. And I grew up around that. He took me to the gym when I was a little kid, right? And basically there was no heating. There was a thing in the corner that looked like something had fallen off a rocket that was spewing out fire and flames. I remember that, to try and heat this room, which was either an aircraft or a helicopter parts storage warehouse or something at Glasgow Airport. And if you needed to go to the toilet, you peed in an empty milk bottle. And that was the kind of gym this was. But nowadays, when you go and you see powerlifting and strength gyms, you can see that the demographic has massively changed, or since the 80s, the amount of disposable income that people have has changed. You go into these places, they got like protein shake bars, and, everybody's got beard wax on and stuff like that. And that's weird and crazy. And it's, to me, just all these people are trying to jump onto the bandwagon, with their products that they've got to sell to you, their recovery drinks, their supplements, their hormone-free grass-fed whey that was picked by an organic squirrel. It's mental. And these people doing seminars are part of this whole thing, because they're like, well, that's a large, sort of a huge value demographic. I mean, if these people are spending $250, $300 US a month on a gym membership, then they've got coin to drop on whatever I'm going to try and sell them. So for me, doing a seminar, I try and give as much information and value out as possible, because that's what's important. And that's what I want to do with this podcast as well, is to try and pass on a load of information. You can use it or not use it, but at least I want to get it out there, because I've managed to accumulate a lot of it. And I hope that I'll be able to share information that my guests have as well. Outside of that, I'm just passionate about helping coaches become better coaches as well. I think that another thing that we see a lot when we go into gyms or attend classes or a group training environment is a cheerleader as opposed to a coach. Problem is, a cheerleader works great when you're teaching Zumba. It doesn't work good when you're teaching people that have a heavy barbell that could be causing potential injury. We have to make sure all the time as coaches that we're spending time developing our coach's eye. That's what's going to enable us to see movement, analyze the movement, and quickly triage that movement to say, okay, there's 5 things wrong here, but there's one major thing wrong. I'm going to fix that major thing because these other 4 things aren't potentially injury causing at this point. That type of thing takes a very long time to develop. So it's important that coaches, I get together and work with each other and look at these things and discuss how they fix things themselves and watch other coaches coaching. Apart from that, the coach's eye, there's other things like, the way that they teach movements. So it takes a long time to develop a huge coaching repertoire. You might go into a gym and, someone could be collapsing in thoracic spine and going into spinal flexion, like a rounded back on their deadlift, and you could be cueing them to put their chest up. Okay, pull your chest up, pull your chest up, pull your chest up, but nothing's happening. So what are you going to do next? If you don't have a coaching repertoire, you're not going to know what to do next. You're either going to keep reinforcing the same thing, or you're just going to abandon ship and walk to the next athlete. You need to be able to go, right, quick, that didn't work. What am I going to do? Boom, tactile cue. Right, okay, put your hand on their back. Okay, what I want you to squeeze those shoulder blades together. Did that work? No, it didn't. Okay, quick, just stop real quick, have a look at me. Okay, look at my chest. This is what you're doing right now. Give an example to them. This is what I want you to do. Give an example of a good movement. Then see if that fixes the thing. You've got to have a huge number of these different, cues that you've got there. Verbal, tactile, show and tell. So it's important for me as well, as I've been going around, to try and increase the knowledge of different coaches. And I think that's something that coaches have to make sure that they're always improving them all the time. That's one thing I've enjoyed. I'm over in America right now, and I've enjoyed going into different gyms and doing drop-in workouts at different gyms because I've seen different cues that people use. I recently I recently heard a good one as well, which was, people that are struggling, on the push press, maybe they keep doing another dip and they're going into a jerk, squeeze your quads real hard. I mean, it's not possible to have your quads squeezed as hard as possible and then bend your knee, because the quad is the knee extensor. So, and it's just seeing these different cues and seeing how different coaches use them, really, really important. I think that's something that we can forget, or we can get stuck in a rut if we're just coaching in the same gym all the time. We're on the same schedule. You're coaching the morning classes, I'm coaching the evening classes. We don't overlap. I never see anyone else coaching. So things like this, doing some trips, are very important. Or going around, and that's why I've enjoyed seminars, going and training other people up and helping them to see what problems there are in people's squat, deadlift, and press, and how to fix it. So anyway, I've talked plenty now. I've given an idea of what strength bias is, idea of who I am, and I look forward to having plenty of these podcasts, having my friends on, shooting the shit, talking about different types of strength training, and hopefully sharing some knowledge with people. This is Kevin, the Strength Bias Podcast. See you soon.